Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the Surefire XH35 weapon light. Surefire generally holds the top spot, deservedly, for the production of very hard use, very purpose-built lights for law enforcement, military, and self-defense. Their lights are approaching the level of legendary. They have a really long legacy, and they've been known for pushing the envelope and innovating as often as they can. We have entered the age of the lumen wars. Seems like every SHOT Show, companies are producing brighter and brighter lights, which is good because that's what we want. Weapon lights still, in my professional opinion, haven't reached a level of intensity where they have become non-usable, if you will. They're not bright enough yet, but they're certainly getting there, and we're definitely much further along than we were 10 years ago. So when Surefire announced the XH35, I was really excited at the initial quoted lumen output, maximum lumen output of 1,000 lumens, which is a lot. But lumens isn't everything. Now, more on that later. First, let's talk about the features of the XH35. You've got a maximum output of 1,000 lumens. You also have a optional 300 lumen setting with a switch located underneath the light body itself. And then, if you're into it, you have a strobe option. Not a big strobe fan. I like the fact that it's optional. I don't have to use it. I don't have to cycle through it. I can either turn it on, turn it off. Don't really have to worry about it. Now, as far as holsters go, compatibility-wise, you're limited to Kydex aftermarket. I'm sure eventually Safariland will produce a duty holster for it. And other than that, you have to use the Surefire Masterfire holsters, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does significantly limit your ability to just grab a holster off of Safariland's website or a retailer if you're going to use the light for duty. If you're going to use the light for self-defense, there are some Kydex makers already making your inside the waistband, outside the waistband concealment holsters for the XH35. Runtime, optimal runtime on the light is what you'd expect. On the high setting, you're going to get almost an hour and a half. On the low setting, you're going to get 2.5 hours, which is a great deal of runtime for usable light, depending on what you're using it for. Now, back to what I'd already mentioned, lumens versus candela. Those are two very important numbers. Most flashlights are sold just quoting the lumens, but as the market has become more intelligent about what we need and as lights get brighter and we start noticing things, especially when we continue to develop best practices for the use of light. Candela is becoming more and more an important number, more and more a number that people are asking for when they look at weapon lights for military, law enforcement, self-defense. I am a huge fan of candela. Lumens is your maximum output, how much light is produced by the light body itself, how much light is it going to produce as a radiance. Whereas candela is the maximum intensity at a point of that light output. While the XH35 has 1,000 lumens, it only has 3,000 candela. Now, to put that in context, the Surefire X300U, the most recent generation, has a lumen output of 600, but 16.5 thousand candela, measured by ANSI standards. That's a significant difference. So just because a light has a higher lumen count doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have a higher candela. Why is candela important? Well, candela important to me, just based on my best practices and principles and the way that I teach low light. I need to have a hot spot to be able to penetrate through photonic barriers, crossing light, ambient light, things like that. I also want that hot spot to be able to control a suspect or an unknown individual, be it a handheld light or a weapon light. I want to be able to put that hot spot on their face and remove their visual horizon. The more candela I have, the greater distance I can do that at. So while the XH35 has 1,000 lumen output, I would liken it more to a floodlight than I would a purpose-built self-defense light. For some strange reason, Surefire is big on this max vision beam technology, which is kind of what's in the XH35. It's a floodlight. And while, don't get me wrong, this light is excellent in confined corners for just total illumination. However, it falls significantly flat on its face when you take it out into extended distances or more ambient light environments, and I'm trying to use my hotspot to actually exercise control or even PID on a longer distance target. The X300U and the Scout Light of the same generation share the same candela, same lumen output, so they can be interchangeably placed on a rifle. The XH35, not something you're going to be able to throw in a rifle, at least reasonably, because that 3,000 candela is only going to get you and this is being very generous, ideal conditions, about 100 meters, 110, 120 meters. That's not necessarily good for PID, especially if you consider a ambient light environment or a scotopic environment where there is ambient light present, flanking or backlit to your target. Positive PID with this not going to be as effective or give you the same distance as you're going to get from a light like the X300U or another competing light that has a significantly higher candela output. Now, it's not all bad news. Getting directly into the features of the XH35, I already talked a little bit about them. Now let's talk about just the overall design and durability. It's using their their screw mount, which some people didn't really care for when the X300UB came out. They like the A, they like the quick attach. I prefer the screw mount because I can witness mark it, and I know over time if my light's going to become loose or not. It also lends itself very well to adapting not only to handguns, but if I want to use it as a helmet light or something like that, the screw mount's going to work a little bit better with the wide degree of Picatinny accessories that you find for mounting on helmets and things of that nature. Durability is excellent. I like the recessed bezel. During drop testing, I didn't experience any problems whatsoever with the XH35. As you know, I drop test from shoulder height to make sure that things are going to be durable and long lasting. Now, during a review process, I try to accelerate the life cycle as much as I can. So I generally do, almost for every firearms related, any product that's going to go directly onto a firearm, I usually do a 2,000 round review process, and this was no different. I had left the XH35 on and switched it between a couple of guns during my own personal practice, and I got well over 2,000 rounds, and that includes I shoot 124 9mm target ammo, and I also put in a lot of 124 plus P and 147 plus P. I even mounted on a rifle briefly to give it a little bit of rifle recoil, just to see if anything was going to go wrong. I didn't expect any kind of failures because, again, it is a Surefire product. Surefire products are known to be very reliable, and they're able to take a beating. It's not the end of the world. I'm just not a fan of the XH35 for reasons already stated. For 1,000 lumens, I want a comparable amount of candela, and I didn't get that because XH35 is designed to be max vision floodlight. While that is useful for some applications, it doesn't really fit my need for self-defense focused instruction. I prefer a hotspot. I don't think that there's anything that the XH35 can do that I can't do with a different style of light that has a significantly amount more candela. Whereas the converse of that, there's a lot of things I can do with a high candela light that the XH35 just cannot accomplish. This would be a light I would use as a helmet light, especially if I did a Mohawk mount to where it projected into an umbrella lighting situation or something adaptable for outdoor situations where I could wear it on the side of my helmet as a administrative or a navigation light. Depending on the circumstances and the environment, I could see the XH35 being very useful, but there's just no way I'm going to mount it on my self-defense handgun or a duty handgun or a duty rifle or self-defense rifle. I don't feel like they're going in the right direction with the max vision technology because candela is something that we definitely need. I need to be able to PID, and in the rifle market, the variable magnification optics are becoming more and more popular, especially in law enforcement. If someone were to just buy this light and mount it on a rifle, especially if that rifle had the ability to go to 4x or 8x magnification, XH35 is going to leave them wanting when it comes to actually positive identification of targets at even extended distances. Just using the light myself, I had a hard time doing PID at 50-60 meters in an urban lighting environment because the photonic barriers, street lights, cars passing by, things like that, were literally blocking all of my light from pushing through and being able to actually illuminate something that was in the shadows beyond a light source, beyond that light barrier. So if somebody's going to ask me, well, what do you think about the XH35? I'll tell you exactly this. It's a great administrative light. It's a great navigation light. It would work well even on a weapon system for someone who's dedicated in a team setting when you've just got a lot of light being projected, or special purpose light. But for patrol officers or general self-defense, it's a hard pass on the XH35. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.